You know how it is. You wait 2 years for a new episode of Strange New Worlds, and two are released at the same time.
Is it me? Or did that one feel like a throwback to the wild and crazy 60s era? I'll tell you one thing. This wasn't the wedding I was expecting. So, 3 months have passed for our characters since the season premiere. The ship repairs are done, people have healed.
Most of them anyway.
And Nurse Chapel is back from her sabbatical.
With a boyfriend in tow. Dr. Roger Corby.
Talk about bringing yet another character from the past.
Well, surely you mean the future.
That's the problem with prequel series. Although, kudos to them for circling the loop, as it were, and getting Chapel involved with him.
Which is the focus of this episode, as once again, we're not exploring strange new worlds, but we're watching a more down-to-earth situation. The devastating emotional impact of a breakup.
They should have called this series Strange New Feelings. I mean, okay, crew interactions and character developments are important and all, but that's something I'd expect more from a soap opera than a sci-fi adventure show.
And in the midst of this awkward reunion, which was so well done by the way, the obvious hurt Spock felt at the bar when Christine described her encounter with Roger was palpable.
Even though he didn't show any emotion at all.
And then the story takes a very unexpected turn. You have something to say?
Fan service.
Care to elaborate?
Alright. For decades now, people have been wondering about Trelane.
Oh, the character from the Squire of Gothos?
Yeah, a supernatural being with incredible, almost magical powers, and whether or not he was related to the Q.
But how could he be? There are other supernatural beings out there in the Star Trek universe, and various crews have encountered a bunch of them. And let's not forget, Trelane needed to be near a technological device to work his powers, whereas the Q don't.
Exactly. But that didn't stop people from thinking there was a connection.
There was even a book written about it.
Yeah, but it's not canon, so it doesn't count. Although, it does prove my point exactly. So now, somehow, we have a character that looks and acts remarkably like Trelane, causing mischief on the Enterprise and turning Spock's love fortunes around.
Except no one sees him as a Trelane-like figure as he uses disguises.
That's the least of my problems. Even though they don't say it, it's obvious it's Trelane. He dresses the same, has the same facial hair and hairstyle, and even says stuff like greetings and felicitations. No one else says that. It's heavily implied it's Trelane, and it messes with the Star Trek world as we know it.
How so?
Well, for one thing, Trelane spoke like that and dressed like that because he didn't understand that looking through a powerful telescope from where his planet was, he'd see humans as they were in the past. He didn't even understand what fire was. That makes sense for the Squire of Gothos, but it makes zero sense if Trelane was mingling amongst humans a decade before that episode.
Yes, that's yet another problem with too much nostalgia.
Well, I guess if you didn't know that episode from the 60s, you wouldn't mind this one. It's got a very similar outcome too, with Daddy taking him away and making him fix things. A literal deus ex machina.
Who was voiced by...
I know! John Delancey, the eponymous Q. This is just fan service, which, once again, undermines what was, in places, a very enjoyable episode.
I did hear you chuckle a few times.
There were some funny moments, absolutely.
And Spock's declaration of love to Christine to break the spell was so sad.
There were some very good character moments, and I think if you're new to the franchise, or newish, say, you'd view this as a weird story with a temperamental supernatural being causing mischief and think nothing of it. But frankly, those handful of nice moments aside, not much is really happening.
There wasn't even a good resolution between Corby and Spock at the end, nor an explanation why Corby was the only one at first who wasn't under Trelane's spell.
So the story could happen?
Always the worst reason, Mouse. They didn't even bother to give us a technobabble explanation.
Maybe they used all their technobabble quota with the last episode.
You've got a point there.
So yeah, as I said, this episode had some nice moments, although nothing much really happened.
I'll tell you something though. When seasons had over 20 episodes, you could afford to have the odd one like this one. But when you only have 10, it feels like we've squandered 10% of our allotment on some weird fanfiction.
I did like the bartender mind.
Perfect job for an Edosian.
The production values are great as always, and we had some fun moments, but I do agree that this episode would likely have been more enjoyable for those who aren't as knowledgeable in Trek lore as we can be.
Nostalgia backfires far too often if you ask me. They should deal with news stories, not try and tickle member berries that don't need to be tickled. and which actually mess up the original characters.
Although you have to agree, Rhys Davies did an excellent job.
He did. He was fantastic. Nothing wrong with what the actor did. Just the story overall.
And with that in mind, I'm awarding Whipping Bell Blues 2 paws. Do let us know what you think in the comments, and if you like what we do,
And how we do it.
And you feel you'd like to help us out,
please consider joining our Patreon.
as long as you can afford it, of course.
We'll leave a link to it in the description and pinned comment.
See you all next time, and until then, live long, and may the Force be with you.